Dolce's eyes flicker open to the gentle hum of voices. The early morning light filters through the tall, arched windows, casting a soft, golden hue over the room. Her body feels heavy, almost weighed down by exhaustion, and her head pounds relentlessly, a deep, throbbing ache that makes her wince. As she blinks, her vision slowly sharpens, and she realizes she's back in her bed. Her large, luxurious bed with the velvet curtains drawn halfway. It takes a moment for her mind to catch up. Was it a dream? Then, the soft murmur of voices pulls her attention. She turns her head slightly to see Mrs. Reynolds standing by her bedside, her posture rigid, but her eyes filled with uncharacteristic concern. Two other housekeepers are busy adjusting her pillows, laying a damp cloth on her forehead. They avoid her gaze, their expressions tense and solemn, as if something unspeakable has happened. "Mrs. Reynolds?" Dolce's voice cracks as she tries to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forces her to lie back down. Her chest tightens as fragments of the night before rush back. The hallway, the dark figure, the crimson eyes. Mrs. Reynolds looks at her calmly, but with a slight frown. "Don't try to get up too quickly, Miss Harper," she says, her voice measured. "You passed out in the hallway last night. Fatigue, most likely." "Fatigue?" Dolce echoes, trying to make sense of the word. "No, that can't be it. That wasn't just exhaustion." Her pulse quickens as her memories begin to coalesce. She remembers the cold air, the eerie silence, and the overwhelming presence of the master. The man who had appeared from the shadows, his form shifting, his eyes burning into hers. Every second of it had felt real, tangible, but now, with the sunlight streaming in, it seemed distant, like a half-forgotten dream. She presses her hand to her temple, trying to recall every detail, but it's like grasping at mist. "I saw something. Someone," Dolce says, her voice firmer now. "It wasn't just exhaustion. I went into the forbidden wing." At the mention of the forbidden wing, Mrs. Reynolds' face becomes unreadable, but there's a flicker of something like fear, behind her calm facade. The two housekeepers freeze, their hands stilling over Dolce's blankets, as though the very mention of that part of the mansion has cast a shadow over the room. Mrs. Reynolds' eyes harden just slightly. "The east wing is off limits for a reason, Miss Harper," she replies, her tone soft but unyielding. "You must have been disoriented from your duties. The mansion can be overwhelming at times. It's easy to let your imagination run away with you." Dolce shakes her head, her frustration growing. "No, I wasn't imagining things. I saw him. The master. He was there, in the room. I know what I saw." For the briefest moment, a strange silence fills the room. Mrs. Reynolds exchanges a glance with the other two housekeepers, who look away, their eyes downcast. Something unspoken passes between them, a secret too heavy to share. "The master is a private man," Mrs. Reynolds says, her voice careful, each word measured. "It is unlikely you would have seen him. He values his privacy above all else. Whatever you think happened, I assure you, it was nothing more than fatigue." Dolce's heart pounds in her chest. They know something. She can feel it in the way Mrs. Reynolds speaks, the way the staff avoids her eyes. There's more to this house than they're letting on. Something dark, something hidden. But as much as she wants to push, the exhaustion pulls at her again, dragging her down into its heavy grip. "You need rest, Miss Harper," Mrs. Reynolds continues, her voice softening as she gestures for the housekeepers to finish tending to Dolce. "Stay in your room for now. Everything will be clearer once you've had more time to recover." Dolce's eyes flutter closed, not because she wants to, but because the weight of her fatigue is too much to resist. As sleep pulls her back under, she can still hear the faint whispers of the housekeepers, their voices low and secretive. Hours later, Dolce wakes again, her body lighter, her mind clearer. The room is empty now, the sunlight softer as it begins to fade into the afternoon. The events of the morning still haunt her, but her determination has returned, stronger than before.
I need answers. She slips out of bed, her legs shaky but functional, and makes her way toward the door. The hallways outside are dimly lit, the long shadows stretching across the marble floors, giving the mansion a ghostly air. The cold stillness of the place seems to follow her as she walks, her footsteps
echoing faintly against the high ceilings. As she wanders, she retraces her steps from the night before, her heart racing as she gets closer to the east wing. When she reaches the grand door, the same one she'd opened the night before, it's locked tight, the heavy brass handle cold under her fingers. What did I really see? Frustrated, she pulls away from the door, her mind swirling with doubt and confusion. Was it just a dream? It had felt real, but with the way Mrs. Reynolds dismissed her claims, she can't help but question herself. Suddenly, a soft voice breaks the silence. You shouldn't be here. Dolce spins around, her heart leaping into her throat. Standing just a few feet away is him, the master. He's no longer a distant figure, but right in front of her, fully formed. His eyes, those same piercing red eyes, staring straight into hers. He's dressed impeccably, his black suit tailored to perfection, his dark hair falling just above his brow. There's something about him that pulls her in, even though every instinct screams at her to run. Dolce stammers, taking a step back. But the master steps closer, his presence overwhelming, suffocating yet magnetic. You were near the forbidden wing again, he says, his voice soft but filled with authority. Curiosity can be dangerous, Dolce. You should know that by now. Dolce's breath catches in her throat as his gaze holds hers. The world around her seems to blur, fading into insignificance. All that matters in this moment is him, the master, and the way his words wrap around her like a spell. What are you? She finally whispers, the question slipping from her lips before she can stop it. The master's lips curl into a small smile, his eyes gleaming with something ancient and dark. That's a question with many answers, he says, his voice low and almost teasing. But not all of them are for you to know. Dolce's pulse quickens as he steps even closer, his presence drawing her in despite the fear curling in her chest. You shouldn't have come this far. Tone soft, gentle. The way his voice seems to reach into her very soul. It's all too real. She opens her mouth and he's gone. Before she can utter a word, he's gone. Vanished into the shadows as quickly as he appeared. Dolce stands in the hallway, her heart pounding, her mind spinning. Is that real? She feels dizzy with the weight of what just happened. The master, his words, his presence. Everything about him felt so unreal, so otherworldly. Still shaken, Dolce decides to head to the kitchen, hoping to find some solace in the normalcy of the bustling staff. The kitchen is alive with the clattering of pots, the warm aroma of freshly baked bread filling the air. But as Dolce steps inside, the atmosphere changes. The staff grows quiet, their eyes darting toward her before quickly looking away. She moves toward the water pitcher, but as she does, Eva, a small but sharp-eyed woman, steps in her path. You shouldn't be in here, Eva snaps, her voice low and full of warning. Dolce frowns, startled by the I'm just getting some water. Eva's eyes narrow. You were near the east wing again, weren't you? That's why you collapsed last night. Her voice is sharp, accusatory, drawing the attention of the other staff, who now watch the confrontation in silence. I don't know what you mean, Dolce snaps. But Eva steps closer, her expression darkening. Stay away from the east wing, Eva hissed, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. The master doesn't even find her crying. Dolce's blood runs cold. Why won't anyone tell me what's really going on in this house? Eva's gaze hardens. You value your life in this house. Forget about it. Some doors should stay locked. Before Dolce can respond,